So in this video, I want to talk about one of the main reasons a lot of people get a PhD. And that is simply to get a job, or getting the job they want. Not everyone wants a PhD because they want to be an academic or they want to stay in academia. A lot of people are doing a PhD just because they want a job. And in my experience, it's actually the minority of people in a PhD program who wants to stay in academia. The vast majority wants to go into industry. And I recently had this conversation with an older gentleman who told me he hates PhDs and he thinks a PhD is a complete waste of time, and you don't need a PhD. You can just learn skills on the job and work your way up. And I don't completely disagree with him, and I can understand where he's coming from because he has probably had some negative experiences with people who have PhDs. There are certainly some people who thinks they are special and unique geniuses because they have a PhD and have an undeserved amount of confidence and probably a lack of skills as well. But there's also definitely quite a lot of people with PhDs who are capable and clever as well. But this whole idea that you can just work your way up, that was probably the case back in the day. So back in the day, you could start lower and you could work your way up. Today, you're gonna need qualifications. The vast majority of companies require some sort of qualification in order to get to a certain level on the ladder, so to speak. And to get a research position, you absolutely do need a PhD. They're probably not going to hire anyone without a PhD for any research position. There's a lot of things that you can do to promote your career and your job opportunities without actually having a degree. It's pretty obvious that networking is important, but having a bachelor's degree is no longer that special. Back in the day, a bachelor's degree was unique enough that it could guarantee you a relatively high-paying job and a quality career, and you were pretty much set for life with a bachelor's degree. Now, on the other hand, over 40% of the population have a bachelor's degree. And in the US, almost 15% of the population has a master's degree. Here in Denmark, 20% of the population have a master's degree. So those degrees aren't that special anymore. 1 in 5 people have a master's degree. And to set yourself apart, that a degree isn't enough anymore. And I'd love to be able to get a job with a degree and then work my way up. I don't think that there is that much value then you don't need a degree, an advanced degree for every job that requires one nowadays. And the reason, even 1 to 2% of the population has a PhD, even that's not that special anymore. And when I just finished my master's degree, and during my master's degree, I was kind of naive. I thought, I have a master's degree in a STEM field, organic chemistry, I should be able to get a job with that. It shouldn't be much of a problem. Well, that turned out not to be true. What I realized here was that there were very few jobs that I was actually qualified for. The vast majority of jobs I was either over or underqualified for. And so, all research scientist positions, I was underqualified for. So that's kind of fair enough. But then I can't get a job that I'm overqualified for either, because now I have a master's degree, and a lab technician, you don't even need a bachelor's to qualify for those positions. And getting a job that's not related to my discipline that I am quote-unquote overqualified for, you can just forget about those. You're not getting any of those. They will laugh you out of the of their office if you try to get a job as a cashier or something. You can forget it. And it felt very stupid that me, as a person who is able-bodied and clear of mind, isn't able to find any job. But that was the case. And at some point, I even considered just removing my education from my CV and just say I'd been to prison instead. It felt almost like that would have been a better option. And what I came to realize was that there was really only one way out of this, and that was up. There was no other choice than to get a PhD. And it feels kind of stupid that you need a PhD, and at least, I realized that doesn't guarantee a job, but at least I felt like it would improve my chances. It would be fewer people I was competing with, and it didn't seem to be that much fewer jobs for that level. And so at least I'd be getting paid whilst doing the degree. At least I'd have a job then. And so there was really that was the only viable option I saw, was to get a PhD. And for me, that wasn't such a big deal because I wanted to do that anyway, but it feels very stupid that you have to do that to get a good job and have a career. And for a lot of people, that's the reason they're doing a PhD, to get a decent paying job. And you can't get those positions necessarily without one, especially once you have started. And also, there is no guarantee. There isn't a one degree type that's going to guarantee you a job. Like when I finished my undergraduate, which was in chemical engineering, that was a job when I started it. That was an education that was supposedly a guarantee for work. At the time, it was a high demand education. And the year before, that graduated before me, every single person had a job before finishing their degree. In my year, no one had a job before finishing their degree. And a lot of them struggled for a long time, I think. And a lot of them just gave up and had to figure something else out. So getting a degree that's guarantee you to get a job is not a thing. You can now see it. Pretty much everyone in the US is now struggling to get a job, I think. But a specific example is computer science, which was guaranteed high-paying job a few years ago, and now it seems the market is flooded. But something I feel like isn't talked about enough, especially as people start their education, is what is a job? It might feel obvious, but I hadn't really thought about it that much before I started looking for one, and even quite some time into looking for one. And I feel like it's something that isn't talked about a lot or enough. And that is, a job is basically an exchange of your time and skills for money. That's what it is. And the reason someone hires you is because they can make more money than they are paying you. And that's what a job is. And so what you need to think about when you're applying for a job, what you need to do is you have to convince them that you can make them more money than anyone else. And, this is not something that I had thought that much about before I started looking for a job. And it was not something anyone told me, even though I was in this whole job center situation with people who are supposed to help you with finding a job and are supposed experts in helping people get a job. I never really got any actionable good advice from these people. I'm really questioning their abilities. What are their qualifications? How do these people get these jobs? Because they seem to me to be completely incompetent. Anyway, that's kind of irrelevant. Another thing is people who give you unsolicited advice on job seeking. It's kind of provoking as well. Anyway, so the point of this video was, not everyone chooses to do a PhD because they want to be an academic or be a professor. A lot of people are doing a PhD because they have to, because that's what's required to get the job they want. And so to judge people just because they have a PhD, I realize there's a lot of people with PhDs who are arrogant pricks, but that's not everyone. And certainly not everyone who is looking for an industry job. My point here is that it's not really about the PhD anymore. It's a means to an end to many people. And also, when you are applying for a job, you should try to, the bad advice I got was to be more personal. Give more of yourself in the application, and I think that's complete bullshit. You should be that when you go to the interview and they ask you questions, you should be you should try to be likable. That's probably one of the most important parts of the interview. What you need to do is try to convince them that you can make them more money than anyone else. And yet, that can be difficult. The best thing to do is to have numbers, where you can say, oh, I saved this much money for this company in this way. But obviously, if you never had a real job, you don't have that. But in reality, the reason a company wants to hire you is because they can make money off of you. But anyway, I think the most important part for getting a job in general is getting as many marketable skills as you can. And that's something you should focus on during your education. And that's also something the sponsor of this video can help you with, Brilliant. So Brilliant is a learning platform focusing on math, computer science, and physics. And what I really like about Brilliant is the interactive elements of the platform. So personally, I really struggle to learn something unless I actually interact with it, and that appears to be the case for most people. This has been thoroughly backed by a lot of studies at this point. And I also really like the fact that the lessons are divided into modules, which makes it easy to find the right starting point for me. It doesn't matter if you're advanced or if you're a complete novice. Because of the modularity, it's very easy to find the right starting point. It also makes it a lot easier for you to progress at the rate that you prefer. You can just jump to the lesson where you feel like you're being challenged and where you learn something new. And so just about anyone can find something new to learn on Brilliant. And personally, I've been using Brilliant to brush up on my statistics. So even though I have a base level in statistics, it's been a while since I actually did any statistics, and so it's been a long time since I interacted with the material. But Brilliant makes it easy to relearn the math, and I can start at a point where I feel like I'm actually getting challenged. And so either if you want to learn something new on your own, or if you're taking coursework, Brilliant can really make the learning a lot easier and make the process of learning a lot more enjoyable. And to get a 30-day free trial, you can go to brilliant.org/Olav Rio. You can scan the QR code on screen, or you can click on the link in the description. Brilliant also gives all my viewers 20% off their annual premium subscription, which gives you unlimited access to everything on Brilliant. So yeah, thank you to Brilliant for sponsoring this video, and thank you for watching.